Well, an introduction to Reverend Dr. Jane Simmons, who's going to be speaking of presence power this morning. And I think everybody remembers Jane. Just briefly say she has a doctorate in theology and the 2020 recipient of Unity's Light and of God Expressing Award. Um, and I think we all appreciate her as a wonderful speaker, author. Many of us have been blessed with workshops and just an overall fabulous human being with great insights. Jane, please share this morning with what you have for us.
Well, thank you for that introduction. It was fabulous. And thank you for that song. George Harrison was my favorite Beatle all throughout my years of being immersed in Beatlemania. And especially when he got into his Eastern philosophy, that's kind of what got me into a more, expanded view of what life was. In fact, I started meditating at the age of 13 because the Beatles did. So I have some history with that. And I've never heard that song before. I'm surprised I
Yeah,
didn't
me
know it.
either.
So let me share my screen. Well, it's wonderful to be with you folks, as always. I always look forward to my visits here. Um, but I want to talk about this wonderful children's book called The Fish Who Search for Water. He goes on this journey to search for this exciting thing that he hears about called water. It sounds so intriguing to him. He thinks this might be the very thing I need that I've been looking for to quench my soul. And so off he goes, travels for days and days and days, and he's just not having any luck at all finding it. And then one day he looks up and he sees um, birds flying above the water. And he thinks, oh, that must be where I can find it. And so he jumps out of the water and immediately regrets it and choking, sputtering. And luckily, gravity did its thing and just pulled him back in the water. And in that moment, he has an aha that what he's been looking for is what he's been immersed in all along. It's a great story. I think it might have a little relevance for us in our spiritual journey. As you heard, my talk title is Presence Power. So, what does it mean to experience this power? It's the power of being totally present to the presence, to the one presence, the one power that surrounds us, enfolds us, and indwells us as well. That's the paradox. Surrounds us, enfolds us, and indwells us. It's the one life that's living itself through and as each one of us right now. And this divine power is everywhere present. It's always present in every situation, in every circumstance. It's always present. It underlies and it animates all of existence. Paradoxically, when we're filled with it, when we're surrounded by this healing presence, we can miss it. Some call this being surrounded and folded in presence power and being filled with it. They call it the three faces of God, which are the immanent face, which means it's within me, and the intimate face, which means it's within you. And I'm seeing God reflected back to me as, from each pair of eyes. And then the transcendent God beyond us. It's within me, it's within you, and it's beyond all of us, everywhere present. And in fact, we are swimming in it right now, whether we realize it or not. And of course, this is the first insight we can take from our fish tale. What we're searching for is right here, right now. We may be trying to find something that quenches our soul, when in fact, what the soul is thirsting for is the awareness of the divine, our divine connection, which is closer to us than our very breath, closer than our very breath. Now, another takeaway from this little story is that when we have a sense of separation, which our fish definitely had when he jumped out of the water, When we have that sense of disconnection and separation, it's a golden opportunity for us to reconnect with the oneness that is always present, that is our true reality. You know, we go through quite the ordeal when we're stuck in the separation. Would you agree with me? When we're stuck in separation, what an ordeal. And when we're feeling this disconnect, that's um, that's the time for us to take steps to come home to ourselves. We could think, and because that separation is what keeps us searching. And so when we're stuck in that place of separation, that's the time to come home to ourselves. And that's so important for us to keep in mind, especially in today's polarized world, you might say. There's so much separation and happening that we want to remember the antidote to that is to come home to ourselves. Because when I'm fully present in mind and body, I start to view the world from a much different place. I start to view the world from my wholeness, at my state of wholeness. And it's a whole different view that I'm going to get when I'm not stuck in separation, seeing the world from that disconnect. So when I'm feeling fully present to whatever's showing up, I now experience life in a much greater way. I can actually feel the aliveness of now. So let that sink in. The aliveness of now. We start to actually experience that. And I can shift to being so in love with this moment. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. So in love with now. I'm not going any other place, no other time, just here and now, fully present. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that whatever's happening is wonderful. It may not be. Brother Lawrence found his bliss washing the pots and pans, if you remember. He was in a state of joy no matter what task was arising, no matter what drudgery he was engaged in. He was in this joyful state. And that kind of presence brings with it a gratitude. I love that our opening prayer was bringing us into gratitude. That kind of gratitude is the birthplace of joy, truly. It's the beginning of that. And that level of joyful gratitude is totally independent of whatever situation or circumstance that we're finding ourselves in. It's just it's really our natural state. I remember hearing Michael Brown, who is the author of The Presence Process. If you haven't read that book, it's a great one. It's an oldie but goldie now. But he described gratitude poetically this way: it's the fragrance of the present moment. And I just love that. It's the fragrance of the present moment. This now moment is saturated with the fragrance of gratitude. I can't help but be in a state of gratitude when I'm aware of the presence of God. You see it? So joyful gratitude, it's our natural state. And it takes a tremendous amount of energy to stop that flow from happening. So feel your body right now. Are you totally relaxed? Are you open? Are you allowing the beauty of this moment to saturate your being? Are you fully present? Are you centered in this now moment? We free up all kinds of internal energy whenever we're relaxed, whenever our nervous systems are calm and regulated. And gratitude can help bring that about. And I'm learning to catch myself when I tense up, when I start to stop the flow. And I do that by noticing something very important. Whenever that happens, I am being much more involved in my own internal drama than I am with my actual experience. Do you know what I mean by this? Being so much into the internal drama, I'm not experiencing what's really happening. So when I'm being stuck behind the curtain of my own drama, I'll replay the story about whatever's happening, and life will just continue to arise without me being aware of it. I'm just too focused on this internal drama. So my inner experience of each moment is determined by where my focus is. If I'm washing the pots and pans, for instance, And I have an internal ticker tape that's running across, my mind saying, oh, I always get stuck doing these dishes. Someone else needs to take a turn. Or look at this mess. This is going to take me forever to clean up. If I'm doing that, will I be vibrating with joy as I do the work? Yeah, not likely, not too likely. But the good news is we really have control over this if we choose. We can experience life in a different way by shifting our internal state. And I love Brother Lawrence's story. I find it so inspiring. I picture him whistling away while he's scrubbing the floors, so immersed in the joy of the moment that he is feeling total bliss. I don't know about you, but that's the state I want to be in when I'm doing these day-to-day tasks that usually it's accompanied by some negative self-talk going on, you see. Um, and if I find myself stuck in that internal drama, maybe I'm immersed in regrets about the past, feeling guilt or shame or any of those things, painful memories coming up and, reminding me of that time when that thing happened. Or maybe I'm worried about the future. Maybe I'm anticipating the future and trying to control what's going to happen. Um, when I'm stuck in there, here's what we want to start with. We want to remember that if I'm believing any of those thoughts, that will keep me involved in this internal drama. Believing those thoughts is what starts it. It's like a running commentary, and that's going to keep me from experiencing the true joy in my life. Do you have a running commentary that sort of narrates your life with you? So being fully present is the difference between playing in a football game and watching it on TV. And when we're watching it on TV, we're listening to the commentators do a play-by-play. Isn't it interesting how we let narrators or MCs or commentators tell us what's happening rather than just experiencing it for ourselves? I remember once, years and years ago, watching a football game with my dad. My dad was a big football fan, and our whole family, we used to like watching football. We were in Canada, so we watched Canadian football. We also watched American. But there was a game one time where they didn't have any commentators. They were trying out something new. I mean, I don't even remember why they were doing that. I just remember there was no one doing the talking. And everything else about that game was normal. There were two opposing teams. They were dressed in their uniforms. They were on a field. Crowd was there, cheerleaders. You know, it was a regular game. However, I was so used to hearing a voice telling me what was happening, I could hardly watch it. I could hardly watch it. I was lost without the voice narrating the action for me. It just felt weird. And I realized, wow, my mind does the same thing. My mind does the same thing. I have to say, I love this picture. When I found this picture, it was such a good illustration of my mind going off in my head. It's always blathering away, see? It's always recounting the story, narrating the action. It's commentating along with it. And that has the effect of keeping me from being fully engaged with the present moment. It keeps my joy locked up. So, do we experience our life as a documentary with narration, or do we dive right in and actually live our lives? The author of The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer, he asked the question, are you living life or are you living mind? Are you living life or living mind? And he calls the inner commentator, if you remember, if you've read this book, our insane roommate that shares space with us. And um, living mind can feel like we're trapped with that insane roommate. Can't get away. And of course, that roommate is offering up a steady diet of fear, judgment, harshness, timetables, schedules, better hurry up, have tos, pressures, trying to stuff mystery into a box and tie it up with a nice, neat bow. It's attempting to control whatever's happening. Presence, on the other hand, wow, it's messy. It's wild, creative, it's lively. It's unpredictable, colors outside the lines. And it might even sound scary to walk on the wild side, but this is where our safety lies, truly. By tapping into the flow of presence and surrendering to its guidance, allowing it to guide us, ultimately brings the quieting of the commentator. Ultimately, that's what happens, right? And our inner state becomes much more peaceful, much more serene. We can only tap into this flow when we are living in the present moment. Otherwise, we miss the gifts that are right in front of us, right now, right here. Be here now. You know, I read the story about a couple on a road trip vacation. After a long day, they finally stopped at a motel and they checked in, and then they went to find some dinner. And the first restaurant they went to was so dark and dingy, it took time for their eyes to adjust, and then they could see how dirty the place was, so they left. The second place they walked into, they were greeted by a wall of cigarette smoke. This is back in the day when such a thing could happen in a restaurant. So they turned around and walked out. The third place was so loud, they had to shout to hear each other, and they decided against that one too. Now, 2 hours had gone by trying to find this restaurant, and they returned to their motel, still hungry. And when they did, they noticed this tiny little restaurant right next door. And they went in. It was well lit, it was clean, it was smoke-free, the staff was friendly. They offered quick service and excellent food right there all the time. And this is kind of what we do when we're looking outside of ourselves all the time, looking for the gifts that are already within us. They're already here. We're just looking in the wrong direction. You know, in the book of John, words attributed to Jesus do not say there are yet 4 months, then comes the harvest. I tell you, lift up your eyes and see how the fields are ripe already for harvest. They're already ripe. The author, Alan Cohen, calls this Bible verse a metaphysical bombshell. I love that. It's a metaphysical bombshell that basically means the potentiality is here now. And if I'm feeling, say, a lack of abundance in my life, I don't need more money. I need more recognition of the abundance that surrounds me right here and right now. See that? You will never have more potential to experience your wholeness than you do right this second. You'll never be closer to complete happiness and joy than you are right now. There'll never be more of an opportunity to feel peace, to feel gratitude, to feel compassion than there is right now. And when we look to another moment, because we don't want to particularly be in this one, we may be spending time reminiscing about the past or worrying about the future. This now moment slips away unlived. Do you see that? George Foreman points out it's wonderful to recall the good times, the moments in your life, but to do so, you have to be present the first time around. You can't revisit a happy moment if you weren't there in the first place. And of course, Dan Millman's famous saying, there are no ordinary moments. If we don't live this moment, we won't live our lives. If we keep on doing that, if we keep on moving to a different time, a different moment, we miss our lives. We become like absentee landlords. And then what happens is we're taken over by the insane roommate, by the default operating system. See, the ego just slips in there, says, I got this. I'll take the wheel. And we go on autopilot. And now the unconscious limiting beliefs are running the show. They start running the show. They slow us down. And the antidote, return to being present. Come back to the now moment. And by staying focused, present, we become free of the tyranny of conditioned unconscious behavior. And being present is how we switch our allegiance, in a way, from the egoic voice to the higher self. What if we made our goal to be joyous, fully awake, grateful in every single moment of the day? What if we made that our intention, our goal? Not to have a certain amount of money or to lose X number of pounds, not to get specific things accomplished, but to be aware and joyful in all things right now. That's a goal worth aiming for. You know, our world needs us to be expressing our presence power. I mean, have you ever met someone with presence power? You ever been around joyously grateful people? One of my beloved classmates in ministerial school was a woman named Xiomara, and she was from the Dominican Republic. Xiomi, as we called her, had the most joyful smile, and it radiated gratitude. And it felt so welcoming to be in her presence. Do you have someone you're drawn to, like a magnet? Someone who radiates unconditional love, someone who's present, who's fully alive. Well, guess what? I've just described you. I've just described your higher self. You see, our true self is naturally joyously grateful. Xiaomi was mirroring that for me. And we can do that for each other. We can do that for each other. We're always in the presence of our true self, but we've been so mesmerized by the commentators play by play that eclipses our awareness of the truth of who we are. You know, when you read about someone who's had some kind of a breakthrough moment when that voice was suddenly silenced, well, it's inspiring to read about how they were startled into awakening to the reality of being in the presence. I mean, Byron Katie is a great example. She was a self-described rageaholic, found herself in a halfway house for women with addictions, sleeping on the floor because she didn't think she deserved to sleep in a bed. But one morning, she awoke and she was free of the inner critic. It was silenced. And she got up off the floor, she went home, questioned every thought as it moved through her mind, realized none of these stressful thoughts were true, and refused to believe them and became joyful, loving what is. That's her famous book, of course. Eckhart Tolle was in a deep depression. He was suicidal when he had a similar breakthrough experience and the thoughts quieted. And he realized the same thing. Believing stressful thoughts is the root of suffering. And of course, we read about it in his classic book, The Power of Now. And they're just two. There's lots of examples. Michael Brown in the Presence Process had a similar thing happen to him. So we don't have, but here's the thing that's so good for us to know. We don't have to be in the throes of such deep suffering as they were to have a breakthrough. We can use a deliberate, intentional practice that helps us to unmask the illusion of separation. Unmask it because it is an illusion. It's not the truth, see? And if I have a belief, for instance, that I'm unlovable, let's say, I will see the world through that lens. It won't be a very loving world that I'm seeing. I won't feel very lovable. I won't feel like I'm being loved or that I am loved. And I'll feel separate from other people. And so when to unmask this illusion of separation, the first thing I want to do is become aware of the limiting belief. Oh, here's that belief that I'm not lovable again showing up. That's why I'm feeling this separation. And then that after the aha moment, when I see it, now I have the opportunity to make a new choice, to stop and feel great compassion for myself, for how hurtful it is to feel unlovable, to feel such unworthiness, to feel like I'm not good enough. That's very hurtful. And so I can go to the compassion and speak to myself as I might a younger child who's come to me for comfort, saying, nobody loves me, right? So we continue doing that, self-compassion, until our heart is wide open and leading the way. And now we take an authentic action that demonstrates a new, more life-affirming belief. And I remember working with the belief that I wasn't good enough and deciding that my action was to book a 2-hour massage. And when I got the massage, luxuriating in the feeling throughout the whole thing that I was good enough, that I was lovable, that this was a gift I was giving myself because I was so lovable. So we continue to take authentic action that demonstrates a new belief. And we keep doing this over and over and over. And that becomes the new baseline normal for me, the more I do it. See, we're creating new neural pathways in the brain, but we have to take those actions. And when we do, here's what happens. Presence now becomes our identity. When we return to the now moment, it becomes our identity rather than the conditioned unconscious self running the show, the default operating system just kicking in and taking over. Presence becomes our identity. That's how it works. Guess what? It takes practice. Have you noticed? Some of these beliefs stick pretty tightly. I've noticed that. And they might appear more than once. They might show up again, especially if they've been around for a long time and have become part of our default behaviors. So it's a matter of constantly returning to the present, remembering that these behaviors that are fueled by unconscious limiting beliefs can only show up when I've gone on autopilot. See? This is how presence power works. Return to the now. Remember that when you're here, that's when you can change your life. Can't do it if I'm on autopilot. In our fish story, there's actually a third point that's important to see. We don't have to struggle to find presence. See, presence isn't something we earn, something we have to work up to, or that we have to improve ourselves to experience it. No, it's already who we are. I saw this online the other day and it just made me laugh. Sisyphus on vacation. It's much easier with a beach ball and a sand dune. But I have to say, getting to presence is even easier than that. We're already in the presence of God. I love Richard Rohr and his work. He says, you cannot get there. You can only be there. And we're swimming in that presence, and we don't have to struggle to find it. As Jack Kornfield reminds us, spiritual practice, being in the present, it's not a grim duty. It's not meant to be a grim duty. I love how he puts that. It's a discovery of joy. I mean, it's a good thing. It's a wonderful thing. Life is a series of moments. And if they're all being avoided, either trading them for the past or the future, that becomes my life. A lifetime of avoidance. A lifetime of avoidance. And I'll miss it. I'll miss my life. At the end, I'll look back and go, where was I? I was never there. Instead, if I immerse myself in the presence, if I completely trust that the one life has my back, I begin to bow to every experience. I begin to bow to every experience as a gift. I learn to welcome every experience, to learn from it, to look for the good in it. And I do that by sinking in to the now moment, knowing there are no ordinary ones. Every moment is precious. Every second is saturated with divine potentiality and possibility. So let's take a breath together. And know that coming back to center, coming home to ourselves, no matter what we're finding ourselves, no matter what circumstance, what situation, no matter how disconnected we might feel, when we come home to ourselves, we connect to that deeper knowing of who we are. Who we are. And our world needs us to be doing this work. So I want to take a moment now, go into a meditative moment. Anita Morjani is another person who's had an experience of oneness, although hers was a near-death experience. If you haven't read her book, it's called something like Dying to Be Me. She had stage 4 cancer and went into a coma and was expected not to ever come out of it. And she had a near-death experience, came back completely healed. It's a really, really exciting, interesting book to read. But she offers this centering moment, and I'm going to share it with you now. I think I actually have it on this. There we go. Staying centered in a turbulent world, a grounding exercise. So I'm going to invite us all to just take a moment, settle wherever you find yourself, and let your body find a comfortable position. I'm going to stop sharing so we can see everybody. And now bring attention to your breath. Don't change it. Just notice it. Just notice it. Feel the inhale arrive. Feel the exhale leave. Now gently bring your attention, your awareness into your body. Feel the soles of your feet. Notice how they feel. Feel whatever surface is below you supporting you. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw unclench. Notice any tension around your eyes, your neck, and release it. And as you continue to follow the breath, imagine there's a sense of stillness at your center, right behind the heart. This stillness doesn't need effort. It's always been here. If thoughts arise, let them drift by. You don't need to follow them. Silently remind yourself, I am here. I am safe in this moment. I am surrounded, enfolded, and filled with the love of God. We give thanks for this time together, for the beautiful truth of who we are. We are divine beings having a human experience, here to bring the presence into expression. There is no spot where God is not. And as each one of us opens up to being the avenue through which the one presence can bless our world, one heart at a time, we bring peace. We bring kindness, compassion, gratitude, joy. Stay for one more breath. And when you're ready, gently return to this time, this space, carrying the peace of God with you. So it is. Amen.
Thank you, Jane. That was amazing. Power, presence, the power of now, the way you've drawn in stories and pictures and examples and experiences, just fabulous. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciated that. Wonderful.